So while I'm in the shop, I'm gonna do a video on a LS engine that I bought, and this is just to let you guys know or to show you guys what to look for when you're buying an LS engine, and to motivate you guys to, unless you bought this engine out of a running car and you heard it run and you see it's not running hot and you see it got oil pressure and like you know for a fact that like I'm pulling this out, this is exactly what it is, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not going in it. I'm just swapping it into my swap or old school or pickup truck or Tahoe. Bust the engine down. Take the time. If you have an engine out that you bought off Facebook or whatever, or from a buddy, and they don't know a whole lot about it, and you have the engine out, you have it on the stand, rebuild the engine. Even if you just replace the lifters and the head gaskets. Because this is a prime example of, oh man, see, I bought the engine. It's like, oh, well, man, it had like a little tap or like a lifter tap. It needs some lifters, or it was probably, it had to need an oil pump. I had a little tap, the oil pressure was low, or whatever. Like the motor wasn't locked up. But I didn't hear it run. I bought it off. It was sitting on the ground. It was just sitting out. Supposedly it was a good engine. Had like a tap. Needs like lifters. But if you're buying this is a LS engine. This is supposedly supposed to have been a 4.8 or 5.3. It's a Gen 4, but it supposedly wasn't nothing major wrong with it. It was supposed to be a good engine. It just needed probably a lifter in it. But I'm gonna show you why you need to look in these motors. You need to take that flywheel off, take that back cover off, take that the timing cover off. At least put a timing chain in it. At least replace the timing chain or the head gasket or the lifters and the trays. At least look at the pistons, clean the pistons, clean the carbon off of the pistons, etc. But let me show you this engine. Okay, so this is the engine. For one, I already took the heads off. I already took the valley plate off. You can see, you can look at this engine and tell it's horrible. It's horrible. Definitely, from taking the heads off and taking the valley tray off, definitely needs more than some lifters. But that's just my opinion. You probably could put some lifters in here, etc. But my problem with this engine is I don't know what kind of lifters to put in it. Because this is a Gen 4 DOD engine, but when I bought it, that was on it. That was on it. And I was planning on swapping this engine into something. So I'm like, okay, cool. He don't really know what he got. He thinks it's maybe a 5.3 or whatever. But I'm looking at this, and the first thing I think is, okay, DOD's blocked off. It looks like a original block off plate. Has to be a 4.8. Cause the Gen 4 4.8s didn't come with DOD, or at least that's what I thought. So when I see this, I'm assuming, okay, 4.8. So I'm happy. I'm fine. I'm like, cool. I'm cool with a 4.8. It doesn't even have DOD. I can go in there, replace a couple gaskets, replace head gaskets, replace some lifters, put a new oil pump in it, change the timing gear out, the cam gear, probably put a decent cam in it, and I'm good to go. Well, first thing I do is pull this off. Okay. Has the O-rings. DOD's been blocked off. So I pull the rocket caps off the heads, and I start pulling out push rods. So as I'm pulling out push rods, looks pretty straight, right? Wow. Can't get much It can't get benter than that. And not only is it bent right here, but it's also bent right here as well. So I don't know if you can see it good on the camera, but it's almost turned this push rod into a full S. Almost a full S. It's bent in 2 places. And I found probably 4 or 5 like that were either bent that bad or slightly bent. So tear the engine down, check the push rods, check the lifters. Don't take their word for it, because they could have pulled that engine out at the junkyard and they don't know what's going on with that engine. This is a complete like Frankenstein. I have no idea what happened with this engine, because I see the block off plate. So I take the push rods out, I automatically see push rods are bent. So the first thing I think is stuck lifter or turn lifter, etc. So I pull the heads off. Horrible. Horrible. And guess what I see on top of every piston? Valve marks. Every piston. Valve. Valves hitting the piston. Every one. So now I'm like, not only are the pistons just dirty, but on top of seeing the valve marks, I see valve reliefs. So I'm looking like, valve reliefs. So now I'm starting to think this is a 5.3. Because guess what I see now? Next, I see DOD lifter trays and DOD lifters in the engine. So now I'm thinking, okay, Gen4 DOD lifters, 5.3. So I start pulling them out. Nothing's stuck, nothing's jammed, everything's smooth. Cam looks fine. So I have no idea what happened with this engine. And then this right here, that like some of this stuff is just stuff that fell in the hose when I took the heads off. And then some of this is just, I'm guessing, from the motor sitting out in the rain. Probably got rained in. Probably a little moisture got into the hose, the heads or whatever. Intake valves were open. Water went down to the pistons. That's no big deal. I expected that. Like, I don't care about that. My thing was, I wasn't expecting valves to have hit every piston. I wasn't expecting DOD lifters inside of the engine with a DOD block off plate. I wasn't expecting 45 push rods bent into a S. But from the outside, just looking at the engine, you don't know. So I went from I can probably put some lifters oil pump in it if I want to now I'm just gonna have to redo the entire engine from top to bottom. All the pistons gonna have to come out, the cranks gonna have to come out, all the lifters coming out, cams coming out, everything's getting redone, replaced. It's finna get the whole 9 yards. The bottom end looked fine, so the bottom end hadn't been touched. But what I honestly think happened with this engine is, whether this was a 4.8 or a 5.3, which I'm thinking maybe, I don't know. But what I honestly think happened was somebody either put a block off plate on here and destroyed it, or it originally was a 4.8, which I'm sure somebody in the comments can correct me, because it has these valve release. I have to look at the crank, but I honestly think this is a 5.3. But either somebody just put the Valley plate on and said, oh, I'm going to DOD delete it, I'm just going to block the DOD off, and that destroyed it, or they said, I'm finna put some lifters in it and put the wrong lifters in it, and that destroyed it. But I mean, somebody who's more knowledgeable, they'll know like exactly what might have happened. But that's why I say tear them down, because what happened to it doesn't matter at this point. Because I'm going to build it into what I want it to be. So if I want to go bigger size pistons, I go bigger size pistons. I can probably still use these pistons. I could probably still use those pistons. I'm not using that cam. I'm not using that oil pump, even though I don't think anything's wrong with it. And that's a video of the cam. Let's see. But it's nasty. It's nasty. It's nasty. So my main point of this video is what somebody told me about their engine was the complete opposite. And I'm not mad. I don't feel like I got finessed. But because you never know, they probably really didn't know. If you go to buy a LS, first thing somebody's gonna say is, oh man, it just had like a little tap, or had like low oil pressure, just need an oil pump, or oh man, just need some lifters, yada yada yada. Tear the engine down, check it out, look at it, because 9 times out of 10, both of the heads got bent valves in them, so they have to be rebuilt. So that's a loss, because this went from just a cheap build, cheap swap, to now I'm basically finna do like a full blown build, rebuilt heads, block work, new bearings, might as well put a cam. So it just changed the whole dynamic of what I was gonna do with this engine. And let's just say you bought this engine in hopes to just put it back in a Silverado or a Tahoe, and you don't necessarily have the money to do all that. You just took a major loss because you don't know what to look for. And then another thing, you can get like get you like a little camera that you can stick in the spark plug holes, look at the pistons, sticking to the oil pan, look at the bottom end, make sure there's no metal or broken parts in the oil pan. You can stick down in the engine. Some you can look down there, you can probably stick it in there, take the valley off, look at the cam, make sure the cam isn't scored. It's certain stuff you can look at depending on what you're trying to do, because I build engines, so any engine I buy, I'm prepared to build it. But you might not be buying an engine in preparation to build it. You might be buying an engine in preparation in just hopes that you can use it and just slap it in. So you need to know what you're looking for. And I bought engines that I've tore down and it's exactly what they said. And then I bought them like this, where they just told me whatever just so I get it. And you never know. And then sometimes people just don't know, because you can buy an engine and they really honestly don't know what's wrong with it. Oh man, it just might need some lifters. I heard like a little tap. Might be a spun bearing, or it might be a cracked cylinder wall, or a cracked piston. I got an Escalade with an LS3 in it I'm gonna do a video on too. And I'm gonna show you guys what happened to that engine. And I think I can save that engine. But that's gonna be a video on if you're trying to buy like the whole vehicle with an LS in it and the engine is seized, or you can kind of rock it a little bit. But that's gonna be a video on that. 09 Escalade LS3. I'll probably get that video uploaded probably same time as this one. But you have to know what you're looking for. And then certain stuff you can just visually see, like super dirty oil, super rusty looking coolant, you can look at the sides of the engines, and you can see if like fluids have been running down the side of the engine. You can see if the oil pan is like super oily. But let's say you do buy an engine, and let's say you do buy an engine out of a running car that you've seen run, that you know is good, oil pressure doesn't run hot. Always replace the rear main seal. Always, with these LSs, put you a new rear main seal in it, put your new front seal in it, replace the oil pan gasket, because you're just sitting there letting it idle, but you don't know, you don't want to put it in and then a month from now, oh man, the rear main seal is leaking. Now you got to slide the transmission back, you got to drop the oil pan, whatever. Any little gaskets you can get to, go and replace them. If you got it out, go and put head gaskets on it, go and put intake gaskets on it. Just preventative gasket changing. That's what I call it. Because you never know what's leaking until that motor gets super hot and you're going down the road and you're putting pressure on it. You never know. But I get that other video up too on the Escalade engine, because somebody has an engine like that and they're probably debating on tearing it down or trying to fix it. And I'll show what was going on with mines, and I'll show how I plan on fixing it inside the truck. I don't plan on taking the engine out, but I'll show that video. And subscribe if you want to see more videos, more content.